Hello, dear beloveds. Well, you have got me completely au naturel today. I am going off to Bali first thing tomorrow morning, and today is a day of planning and getting, or preparing, I should say. The planning is done and getting everything packed and getting my last minute things together and appointments and other things that I need to do before I fly off in the morning. So completely au naturel, and I'm a little bit vain, so this is quite a big deal. But even though today is a day where I'm not really working, I just felt like I wanted to spend some time with you all. It's energetically, the new moon energy is a very beautiful time as an archetype. If we think of it as an archetype rather than something that gets to tell us how we're feeling, the archetypal energy available around a new moon is very much of that inward looking, that Saraswati energy. And the veils are thin and we can access the kind of subtle realms with much more ease. So it's a beautiful day to join with you, to commune with the sacred archetypes and to invite them to connect with those of you who've nominated yourselves. So thank you if you popped your name down. I'll endeavor to work through the list of people who did nominate themselves, and I'll just see how I'm traveling, and if I can get through them all, I will absolutely do that. And once again, as I said, the last time we gathered in this way, even if you didn't specifically request for an archetype to commune with you, be aware that if you're listening, and even if you listen back later, that there's no accident. The information that you're hearing is going to be as useful and relevant for you as it is for the person who has requested it. This is the nature of the miracle of the cosmos and the incredible intelligence that organizes us, that we are always exactly where we're meant to be, experiencing exactly what we're meant to be experiencing, and that everything is kind of divinely conspired to make it so. So I'm very excited for us to spend some time. The work that I'm sharing with you today is from the intuitive intelligence method, which is an approach to evaluating the human energy field that I developed as part of the third level training. So this year-long training to train women as gold standard, laser-like intuitive guides who can access the subtle realms of their client in order to support their client to be able to do that for themselves. So really removing the blocks and obstacles for that client to be able to connect to their intuitive knowing, their intuitive intelligence with the deepest amount of self-reliance, really moving away from this idea that we need someone with special magic powers to do it for us. All of us can train this muscle. We all innately possess a powerful intuition, but until we commit to training it, it can often remain like lots of our muscles hidden beneath the layers of fat and not working in a way that's really powerful and serving us. That fat is a metaphor, by the way. And so the women who come into the third level spend a year becoming masterful in the method. And part of the method is that we commune with the sacred archetypes. There are 13 that we work with in the method, and they come from predominantly the work of Carl Jung. And we have adapted them to our own purposes. The Jungian archetypes have been adapted in many, many different places and at different times. And for us, it's really to, the 13 that we work with come from my work with many, many women over, hundreds of women over several years of doing one-on-one sessions. And these were the patterns. An archetype is a pattern that repeats itself, that were recurring. And I just want to share with you the sacred 13 that we work with. And I'm just going to share the feminine versions. There are masculine versions as well, but our work is predominantly with the sacred feminine. So we have the ones that are probably fairly well known to you, which map the life cycle of a woman: the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And they're the ones that we all tend to know about, that holy trinity. But there's also the Marga, and the Marga is the phase of life usually after child rearing, where she has more independence and more freedom. And she doesn't care as much what other people think about her. We have the wild woman, or the seductress, the alchemist healer, the warrior, the teacher, the student, the wife, the priestess, the queen, and the goddess. And rather than these being fixed identities or, you know, associated with one particular mythology or one particular, you know, ideology, we are training to have an open and fluid communion with these energies. And they really are archetypal, as in they repeat again and again in different cultures, different times, different places. There are stories that match these archetypes, and these identities of the sacred feminine recur because they help us understand ourselves more deeply. We can also think of them as literal energies. So we can think of the identity of, or the guise of that archetype presenting itself as a guide. So just as we might connect to an archangel, or we might connect to an ascended master, we don't use that language, because part of the commitment as an intuitive guide is you're moving beyond belief. You're moving beyond limited ideas and identities. We want to open this conversation up, not close it down. And so we don't necessarily identify the name of a goddess or the name of a historical figure, although that may happen. We primarily focus on the archetypal energy because that may be represented in lots of different ways. So that's enough about what we're here to do. We're going to begin. I don't think she's here, but that doesn't matter, because as I said, this is for all who are here. The information that is being shared is not just for the person who's requested. And so as you listen to see what part of me needs to hear this. What am I receiving right now that's serving me? Because that person asked to have a communion with an archetype, and I'm here listening, and therefore I'm receiving something that is my medicine too. So we're just going to take a moment, and all of us can do this together because this is a co-created experience. To close down the eyes if you're safe to do so, or simply to fix your gaze inwards. So just softening the eyes, drawing your attention away from the superficial world. With every breath in and out, we're becoming more wave, less particle. Merging with our infinite nature. Moving out of our cranial brain and into our heart brain, the center of our intuitive intelligence. And with eyes closed and breath deepened, we move out of that busy doing beta brainwave state. We move into alpha, which is that bridge between the analytical and the creative minds. That bridge allows us to access our intuition with ease. We may even feel ourselves moving towards theta, where we open the gateway to that one mind. And when we do this work, it may be that the archetype speaks directly through me, or I will speak with the archetype, so on behalf of the archetype. And for our first person who self-nominated, Megan, we have the archetype of the student. And the student is here to invite you to feel pride in your role as the student at this point in time in your life, and not to see it as a failure. This self-critical voice that suggests that you should be somewhere else, or doing something more, or pushing yourself to be somewhere where you are not yet meant to be. And that the student wants you to take more pride in the investment that you're making in yourself in all ways, as well as in your preparation time, the care that you're taking to ensure that you are ready when the time comes to be that demonstration to the world, and to step into that leadership, and to step into that teacher archetype more fully. You have at different times occupied that role of teacher and at different times student, but at this point in time, the student archetype is the dominant one, and it's not a lesser than position. And this is absolutely vital for you to hear. that there is nothing lesser than about the student, because we know that the student and teacher archetypes sit almost as one, this symbiotic relationship. If you ever meet a teacher who's stopped learning, run, because you are not in a safe hands. You're in the atmosphere of arrogance and certainty that they know everything they need to know. No teacher who's in her right relationship with her teacher archetype will ever believe that. So the student wants you to feel grounded and safe to be with her fully, and not to feel like you've made a wrong choice at some point, because you have not. You are exactly where you're meant to be, and you are preparing the ground in a very big way. And we want you to take absolute certainty of how right the student is. It's like, this is the archetype for you right now, dear one, and she is honored to be in your presence and would like you to take more joy and pleasure in her appearance in your life. Okay, the next person on my list is Susan. And here we have the archetype of the teacher. And the teacher is, as we just said, the symbiotic other of the student. It is impossible for a right-minded, right-actioned teacher to ever be separate from the student. But here the teacher is sort of tapping her fingers now on the desk. Yes, she's a little bit bored of your rejection of her. The authority to speak as the teacher does not come because you have cured all ills. She's not yours by right because you have attained some sense of I've made it, or I've got there, or I'm where I'm supposed to be. She is by rights yours because she was born into your life map and is there to be activated, and she's sort of sitting around strumming her fingers wondering when her time will come. And the complications that you put between her and you are ego-identified complications. So there's this kind of crazy maze between you and her, and yet the path to her is actually very clear and straight. But you've invented this kind of circuitous route to keep the ego occupied rather than going directly to her, which is what she's inviting you to do now. There is no readiness. There's no ground that needs to be prepared. There's simply the willingness to put down the belief that something went wrong and to step onto that path with deep courage and deep certainty that there is nothing more to be done other than to occupy her. Okay, Sarah. And Sarah, we have the healer who heals herself. And the words, "to thine own self be true." The things that are no longer relevant must be put down now. So the healer has progressed very quickly of late, and you've up-leveled very quickly in your consciousness, but there's still things in your life that reflect a different time and space, a different paradigm. And the invitation is there now to become congruent with what you have become, even though it feels like it's happened faster than you imagined it would, or that you feel potentially ready for. You have stepped into a new paradigm, and you're sort of dragging some old stuff with you that isn't part of your, doesn't need to be part of your life anymore, and in fact is in a contradiction to what you know to be true now. So you, as the healer, that's a primary archetype for you. It's a very important archetype for you, as both within and without, in your work in the world and your work within. And of course there's only one, but this idea of yourself needs to be revised and upgraded at the level of the reasoning conscious mind, or the ego identified self, because the healer within you has elevated herself to such a high level that she will no longer tolerate some of the things that were once part of your package of being a healer. So sit with that truth that you have evolved, dear one, and your work is much more potent than it ever has been, than it ever was. And now is the time to put down some of the external things that no longer are necessary, some of the things that you have actually now evolved beyond, but you haven't necessarily caught up to that truth. Okay. Christine. And here we have the wife. And the wife is often an archetype that women resist or rail against, or even get quite angry about having show up in their energy field. But the wife here is very much coming with the energy of Parvati. And Parvati is, this power, this absolute certainty of self and the rightness of your individuality. So very often we reject the wife because the wife in our contemporary world or in our patriarchal world has been subsumed into the identity of the man. And so she is simply a lesser than partner. She's not a partner. She is a lesser than figure in her own relationship. And so we often feel that resistance to her. But the wife in the form of Parvati is coming to you because of her ripeness and her richness to be self-identified, being willing to walk your own path whilst in partnership, whether that's a literal partnership or not, it doesn't matter, that you can be that and that. Very often we think that we have to reject the other, reject the partner in order for us to go on our own individual journey. And very often marriages will end when we awaken spiritually. And sometimes that's right, but very often it's not necessary. If we had the courage to say, this is who I am and this is what I am going to do for myself and this is what I need, we may find the change is challenging within the relationship, but it's not impossible when we are with ourselves. So Parvati is inviting you actually into right relationship with yourself, to partner with yourself, to be loyal and fiercely loyal to yourself primarily, because then everyone around you will find their own new level. Like you'll allow everyone else to reset. So partner righteously with the self first. Be more loyal to yourself than anyone else, and you'll find that everybody else can fall into line and find this new level without you having to destroy relationships or end anything. You can in fact enhance them by being truer to yourself than you are to anyone else, and truer to yourself than you've ever been in your life. And she's bringing this kind of rich, luscious abundance. I can even see her with like sort of, beautiful pears and pomegranates and all this kind of, this feasting of self on self or with self, this absolute luxuriating in your own identity and falling in love with yourself, bestow blessings upon your partnership with yourself. Ah, that's beautiful. Oh, Sarah, you are here. That's great. I'm very pleased to hear that someone who put their name down is with us. All right, Wendy. There's a few dancing around you, my darling. And it suggests to me that there's a changing of the guard in your life right now. There's a changing of energy around you. And those archetypes that have been with you for a long time are kind of moving and shifting out to allow new energy, new archetypal guides to move into your field. And there may be some resistance to that change, or it may feel like the change is happening really quickly. Or it may be that you're permitting change in some areas, but in other areas you're resisting that change because the change is holy. It is going to encompass your whole life, but it's a necessary change. There's an energy of the Marga there for sure, and an embodiment of the Marga. So this means for you now putting down the things of that were once important in terms of other people's opinion of you, other people's expectations of you, and meeting those and being good and being nice. Those things now no longer have relevance and are becoming less and less important, but there's a fear of social isolation as a result of that. If I'm not polite and tolerable and acceptable, then I will become isolated and separate from the world around me. And as we deepen into our spiritual path, I think we archetypally all feel that at some point, will I become a stranger to my life and to the world? But the more you wed yourself to the energy of the wise Marga, who really doesn't give any, I don't want to swear in case there are children present, but she gives no fucks. She doesn't really invest in the outside opinion of her at all, and she's free. She's free in a fierce way, and that fierce freedom is almost too much for you right now to accept as a possibility for yourself, but that is the invitation, because where your work is calling you to go, where your service is calling you to go, is radical, and it's going to, yes, cause change in your relationships and cause change with your relationship with the world, but you've been calling for it. So don't be afraid of the fierce freedom that the Marga energy brings, where she is not identifying her worth by any external measure, and putting down politeness and niceness, and putting down this idea of being approved of, to become so self-approving that she simply does not see criticism of herself, because she is wedded to this path of service in such a powerful way. It is her only focus. Okay. Gosh, that was beautiful energy. Okay, Brooke. Okay. You may or may not like this one, but I'm going to share her anyway, as if I have a choice. And this is the Mother. And there is a changing of the guard here too, in terms of your understanding of the Mother. And the Mother energy that is around is very much that Gaia Mother energy, the universal Mother, the energy of the Mother Mary, rather than the personal Mother energy. And this is very different to the way that we have been shown that mothers should be in the world. This energy is not personal. It's not about identifying the 2 or 3 little humans that you gave birth to and sacrificing your life to them, and then waking up in 20 years and wondering what happened, and basically privileging someone else's life above your own, which is what we've been taught in this current paradigm, this patriarchal paradigm, that is what a good mother does. She is self-sacrificing, and that self-sacrifice is the hallmark of a classic good mother, a nice mother. And the mother that is awakening in you is a fierce mother. She is not nice and polite, and she doesn't put her own needs down in order to tend to these people in her care. She's in right relationship with those in her care, but only because she's in right relationship with herself. And what the fierce mother needs is to be in that divine mother energy for many, not just for a few. The mother archetype in the domestic world is actually a trap to keep women largely from fulfilling the greatness of who they are. And I say that knowing that for some people that will be hard to hear, but that if you were given permission to be all, not just one idea of mother, that is a male identified idea of what a good mother is, a patriarchal idea. And I know these words you understand, my sister, but I feel there's more depth to changing your relationship to that word mother and to the archetype of the mother, because the eternal mother, the universal mother, the Gaia mother is just so fucking powerful, and she is trying to move through you, but you're resistant to her because you're resistant to the word mother. And I would love for you to surrender all of your beliefs now and to let that power move you, and perhaps you will meet her in a new way, and you will see that she is part of your medicine, and you have been drawn to her, but you thought that meant needing to talk about some kind of, human to child, mother to child relationship, and it really has nothing to do with that. This is about unleashing that divine mother energy at that cosmic level, and seeing what power she has for you, what medicine she has for you. Okay, Karen. There's such a kind of veil around the energy here. There's a timidity even at first connection. There's a sense of hiding from self, and I'm just going to take a moment to see what is hiding behind that veil that you've erected to protect, to keep yourself safe. And of course it is the priestess, of course. It is the priestess, dear sister, and she's done with being in hiding, and she's done with concealing herself in order to keep the human part of you feeling comfortable and safe. There's so much work that she is itching to do in the world, and you understand that, and you get that in a really big way, and at the same time have rejected it, not just in this lifetime, but in many lifetimes. The idea idea of the priestess is the ultimate image of being unsafe. And that is not a surprise. We know the history of women since the time of the patriarchy began has been to be tortured and burnt and to die in the name of being the priestess. But this time is not that time. And the energy that is calling you now is not calling you into danger, but calling you into life. And she's restless. She's not going to let you be timid and conceal your power to serve in the way the priestess wants to serve, which is to be that embodiment of holy power, the bridge between, you know, the divine and the mundane, and to cast off that concern now that this means the loss of something, the loss of your life or the loss of your family or the loss of your relationships, but to be aware that everything will change and evolve. It's an inevitability that we're doing it anyway. What we get to decide is how much resistance, how much rejection we have of that. So it's like, the image is silly, but it's like you've got a shower curtain around you and you're standing behind the shower curtain hoping no one pulls it back, like, you know, in the Wizard of Oz when they reveal the wizard and he turns out to not be the scary thing. It's like, don't think that you're kidding anybody. You're literally in plain sight just with a shower curtain wrapped around you and nobody's buying it. So this is the time to be self-permitting. You're already doing it. You're already walking the path. You've already said yes. Let's just get on board with that truth now and keep moving. Oh, good, Brooke. I'm glad you were here, darling, and I'm glad you got to hear that one. Okay, Emma. I've got 3 more people on my list, and I think that's probably my capacity for today. I'm so grateful for you all being here with me, and I hope you're hearing these archetypes and the medicine they have for everybody, because there are no accidents. So Emma, we have the enchantress energy here, and the enchantress energy can be associated with a few of the archetypes, but in particular the Marga energy, because the enchantress is self-reliant and she's self-permitting and self-approving. She's self-sovereigning, but she's a magical energy as well, and she's magnetic. And this is an aspect of you that you're aware of, but you haven't let yourself fully occupy for fear. Once again, everything that we block ourselves is because of fear, but this fear of being seen, it's like you're afraid of your own power. And the enchantress is she weaves magic in, she turns ordinary into extraordinary. She is, where she goes, she kind of spreads that sparkling energy that transmutes and transforms, and people may not even recognize what's happened, but it's like you're constantly causing these positive ripple effects in the world. Now, the other side of that is that you are very powerful at causing negative ripple effects as well, and when you're not in right relationship with yourself, it can be very easy to fall into being quite destructive. But that energy is calling you now to fully occupy her, to step into the enchantress energy, and to not be timid and to not be afraid of the potency that you possess. And that's the word, potency. You're potent. You're full to the brim of this power, and you've tried to pretend you're an ordinary girl, and you're not. And now you're in this very awakening, self-permitting phase, and I'm excited to see what you do with that. But this is just that big permission stamp. Please stop trying to be like everybody else, because you're not. You know that. You never have been. It's never worked for you. But what would happen if you actually cultivated that energy and you kept growing it and extending it? What would be the limits of that? My expectation is that there are no limits, but I would love for you to embody that for yourself now and really sit with the energy of the enchantress, who just magnetizes and moves energy like quicksilver. And she's just, when she's in right relationship with herself, is just so potent and so, almost like the seductress energy, but much more about that relationship with the seductress can be quite like, ugh. Whereas the enchantress kind of draws people in. I didn't describe that very well of the seductress, but the seductress just sort of doesn't care. And, you know, she's so just in her own energy, and she's not interested at all in worrying about what other people want or need. And that's a very powerful quality when it's in right relationship with itself. And this enchantress is more about drawing people into you now, drawing to you what you need to move forward. Okay. Joe. Joe, there is also a number of archetypes around you, but the one I'm going to tune into is one that is sort of waiting for you. She's calling you to her, and this is the priestess. And the priestess here is the one, not the one that's sitting here right here with you now, but the one who's sort of calling you in and inviting you to make the changes necessary in your life to clear the way. It's like it's a time of clearing out so that the path to her can be made easily accessible. For she is the priestess is in service. Her mandate is service. Her desire is to be in service. And there's been a sense of weariness or a sense of heaviness or a sense of burden that is from being in service, but in the shadow sense, which is servitude, which is putting everybody else first, which is denying the self, which is ignoring the soul, which is allowing other people's lives to take precedent over your own. But you're clearing all of that away now. And that energy of clearing has to go on for a little time now, for this new paradigm for you to have access to this new paradigm. And what is waiting is the priestess. So everything that you've hoped for is there and is waiting to be, you know, occupied. And it's not a matter of will it happen, it's simply when, and how quickly will you let yourself clear the way towards her and to step onto that path of sacred service in the way that you have felt possible inside of you, but haven't necessarily dared let yourself believe is true. It is true. It is a guide. It is bringing you where you need to be. And just keep clearing away, clearing away, clearing away, and letting that work be done for you as well. You don't have to do it all by yourself. And that can be very hard for us to understand or even give permission for. Let the heavens support you. Let that subtle realm show you how to get more expediently to the life that you're holding in your heart and is calling you in now. Okay, final one. Good. I feel like we're doing good. I'm at capacity. I could do this work all day, but I realize I have a suitcase to pack. And if I don't do that very soon, I'm going to, you know, be wearing the clothes I have on me when I go to Bali. Okay. Jacqueline. This is an interesting partnership here. It's the mother archetype, but the child is right there with that. And the child is actually not one of the 13 that we work with. It could be the maiden energy, but it's the mother energy with that child energy, very kind of firmly connected. And there's a sense here of an incomplete separation, an energetic incomplete separation. So the willingness to become the fully embodied, once again, not the domestic idea of mother, but the cosmic mother, the holder of the entire universe. We work with an energy, a goddess called Bhuvaneshwari in the 3rd level, and she is the container that holds the entire cosmos. But you don't see her because her job is invisible, but without her we would not exist. And there's a rejection of that part of yourself because there is still this over attachment to the child. And the child is actually one of the shadow archetypes. The child is the one who gives her power away. She doesn't want the responsibility of her life. She abdicates responsibility for her life. So whilst this energy of the cosmic mother, the divine mother, is calling you to step into her because that is how potent and how powerful you are, there is this wounded child energy that's sitting there saying, I'm not ready, I can't, I'll just find someone else to do that for me. I'll give my power away to that person or that relationship, or I'll just keep giving, you know, when someone says you're amazing, I'll be like, no, I'm not. I'm just rejecting that. And there's a rejection of your own power. But this cosmic mother energy, this energy that is wanting to just burst through you and just to meet herself as the infinite vast power that she is constantly kind of being pulled back by this. It's almost like a growth, this shadow child energy that's kind of sitting there and resisting power and pulling you back. So every time you feel yourself moving towards that power, you feel yourself pulled back. And it may at times feel like that's happening to you, that life is causing that. But actually it's now time, dear one, just to make that choice that I am safe. Nothing that has happened to me has caused me to be less than what I truly am. And if I could see myself as God sees me, I would know that nothing in my life has prevented me from moving into my full soul power. That I am not wounded, that I'm not damaged, that I'm not broken, that I have not done anything so terrible or had anything so terrible done to me that I cannot occupy my full energy, my full expression of my soul nature in the world. And this fear is there's this child, the shadow energy is this fear that something has gone wrong and I am not going to be able to access the full expression of what I am. The guardian or the light side of the child is the innocent, and that is in our list. You know, the maiden is also known as the innocent. And if you can return your gaze to innocence, if you can let yourself be to see your life events with innocence and know that nothing has truly harmed you, nothing has reduced you, nothing has taken away your capacity to do all with your life, then you will feel that renewed heart that will allow you to be open-hearted and full of wonder and full of joy about where you're going. And this is deep work, you know, deep shadow work. But once again, just keep giving it to God, keep giving it to the infinite. I do not have to do this on my own, and I'm willing to surrender now all that does not serve me. I'm willing to see this child as whole and holy, that everything she needed has been provided, and she's safe to mature now into her spiritual adulthood. And just feel that move through you and let yourself be altered by it. Okay, dear ones, thank you for those of you who were here live with me and able to hear, if you requested and you could hear something that you had asked for. And for those of you who were here and you didn't request, but I hope you were able to receive the medicine from these beautiful sacred archetypes, a beautiful collection of energies today. And as I said, the veil's very thin around this time. Our capacity to go inwards, this energy of the new moon, is heightened, and this is an archetypal pattern that repeats, and it repeats every month. So we have this opportunity to be inward looking and to access this information for ourselves, remembering there's no special magical power that I possess that you don't have. We simply need to be willing to work the muscle. And this is part of the third level intuitive intelligence method. And the women who walk that path have chosen to work the muscle of their intuition, to become laser-like, to be able to tune into the subtle anatomy of someone on the other side of the planet or someone they've never met before, and to see what is there at the subtle level of consciousness and to alter that person's life in partnership with them. And it's profound work, and it's a deep blessing. So thank you to those of you who allowed me that opportunity, and to all of you who've joined me. We'll just take a moment now just to, if you're safe to do so, close down your eyes, taking your hands over your heart, taking a deep breath in and letting it go. We honor all of the archetypal energy that has bestowed us with its blessing today. And deepest gratitude for the unseen forces that guide our life and are constantly yearning to support and connect us, to give us what we need. And we are so busy doing that we don't notice. We reject it. But we are held in a web of infinite consciousness, and we are being fed everything we need in every moment. And we are so deeply humbled and grateful for this truth. And so it is. And it is so. Thank you for joining me today. It's my last official activity before I fly away, and I won't be on social media very much. There will still be posts coming out, but I hope all of you have a wonderful time in my absence, and you know, we'll meet again very soon. Bye.